Lightning split the sky as Emma Chen raced through the storm-ravaged pasture, her heart pounding with each flash of thunder. In the distance, a faint whimper pierced through the howling wind, a sound that would change her life forever. What? She discovered that night was more than just a dying foal. It was the beginning of a journey that would bring an extraordinary gift, one that would shake the foundations of the equestrian world and redefine the meaning of destiny. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The deluge had been relentless for days, turning the peaceful Montana countryside into a treacherous landscape of mud and debris. Emma's boots squelched through the sodden earth as she made her final rounds of Sweet Meadow Farm, her family's modest horse breeding operation. The property had seen better days, but Emma refused to let it fade into obscurity like so many other small farms in the valley. A particularly bright flash of lightning illuminated the southern pasture, and that's when she saw it, a small, dark shape huddled against the old oak tree. At first, she thought it might be debris thrown by the storm, but another whimper carried on. The wind made her blood run cold. Emma broke into a run, her raincoat flapping wildly around her. As she drew closer, the shape took form. A newborn foal, no more than a few days old, lay trembling in the mud. Its coat, which might have been a rich bay color when dry, was matted and caked with dirt. The foal's breathing was shallow and labored, its small body racked with shivers. Emma's trained eye quickly assessed the situation. No mare in sight, severely dehydrated and showing signs of pneumonia. "Oh, God," she whispered, dropping to her knees beside the tiny creature. Her hands moved expertly over its body, checking for injuries. The foal's temperature was dangerously low, and its pulse was weak but rapid. As she touched its neck, the foal's eyes fluttered open. They were an unusual shade of amber, filled with a mix of fear and something else. Something that made Emma's breath catch in her throat. Without hesitation, Emma shrugged off her raincoat and wrapped it around the foal's trembling body. "Hold on, little one," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the storm. "I'm not letting you go without a fight." The journey back to the barn was grueling. Emma half carried, half dragged the foal through the storm, her muscles screaming. In protest, the old barn loomed ahead, its weathered walls a beacon of hope in the darkness. Inside, the familiar scent of hay and leather wrapped around them like a warm embrace. Emma worked quickly, her movements precise despite her exhaustion. She cleared a space in the nearest stall, laying down fresh straw and setting up heat lamps. The foal had stopped whimpering, which worried her more than the cries had. As she administered emergency first aid, her mind raced through possibilities. Where had this foal come from? The nearest horse farm was miles away, and she knew all the local breeders. The distinctive markings on the foal's face, a perfect diamond of white surrounded by unusual swirling patterns, suggested expensive breeding. This was no ordinary farm horse. This foal came from money, from the kind of sleek corporate breeding operations that had been squeezing out family farms like Sweet Meadow for years. Emma's hands trembled as she inserted the IV line, administering fluids and antibiotics. The storm raged on outside, but in this moment her world had narrowed to the rise and fall of the foal's chest, each breath a small victory against death. Her phone buzzed, a message from her brother Michael. "Storm's getting worse. Roads are flooding." "You okay out there?" Emma typed back quickly. "Found a dying foal. Working on it now. Might need Dr. Sarah. The response was immediate. Roads to town are blocked. Sarah's stuck at the clinic. You're on your own tonight, sis. A crack of thunder made the barn walls shudder, and Emma instinctively placed her hand on the foal's neck, feeling its thready pulse. Looks like it's just you and me, little one, she whispered, but I've got some experience with beating the odds. Her gaze drifted to the faded blue ribbons hanging on the barn wall, dusty testaments to Sweet Meadow's glory days. 10 years ago, they'd been one of the most respected breeding operations in the state. Then came the accident that took their parents, followed by the economic downturn that nearly took everything else. Now at 28, Emma was fighting to keep her family's legacy alive, even as larger operations circled like vultures, waiting for Sweet Meadow to fail. The foal stirred, letting out a weak nicker that pulled Emma back to the present. Its ember eyes fixed on her with an intensity that seemed beyond its years. Emma had worked with horses all her life, but something about this foal was different. There was an intelligence in those eyes, a spark of something special that made her heart ache. "You're a fighter, aren't you?" she murmured, adjusting the heat lamp. "Well, so am I, and tonight we're going to fight together." Hours crept by as Emma monitored the foal's vital signs, administering medications and adjusting its position to help with breathing. She talked continuously, her voice soft but steady, telling stories of Sweet Meadow's history, of the champions they'd bred, of the dreams she still held on to despite everything. The storm began to ease as dawn approached, the thunder growing distant. Emma's back ached from sitting on the straw, but she didn't dare move. The foal's breathing had stabilized somewhat, though its temperature was still concerning, as the first weak rays of sunlight filtered through the barn's windows. Emma allowed herself to hope. That's when she noticed something odd about the foal's left hip. Beneath the mud and matted fur was a small mark, barely visible. Emma leaned closer, using a damp cloth to gently clean the area. Her heart nearly stopped as the mark became clear. It was a brand, but unlike any she'd had seen before, an intricate design of interlocking circles and lines that seemed to shimmer in the early morning light. "What are you?" she whispered, tracing the pattern with her finger. "And what happened to you?" The foal's ear twitched at her touch, and it lifted its head slightly, pressing into her hand with unexpected strength. In that moment, something passed between them, a connection, a promise, a destiny neither of them yet understood. Emma didn't know it then, but this night would be remembered as the beginning of a story that would become legend in the valleys of Montana. A story of hope, redemption, and an extraordinary gift that would emerge from the storm's darkness. What Emma couldn't possibly know as she cradled the foal's head in her lap was that this tiny, struggling creature would not only survive, but return years later with something that would change everything. A gift that would rewrite the future of Sweet Meadow Farm and challenge everything the equestrian world thought it knew about the bond between humans and horses. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the barn as Emma fought exhaustion, her muscles aching from the night's ordeal. The foal's condition remained critical, but there was a glimmer of hope in its steady breathing. As she checked the IV line for the 100th time, the sound of tires on gravel announced an unexpected arrival. Dr. Sarah Martinez burst through the barn doors, her medical bag clutched tightly. "Got through as soon as the roads cleared," she announced, already pulling on surgical gloves. "Michael called me 4 times in the last hour." Her sharp eyes took in the scene. noting Emma's disheveled appearance and the sophisticated medical setup she'd managed alone. "You've done good work here, Emma," Sarah murmured, kneeling beside the foal. Her practiced hands moved over its body, checking vital signs. "This little one should have died hours ago. Whatever you did, it bought us time." Emma watched anxiously as Sarah conducted a thorough examination. The vet's expression grew increasingly puzzled as she studied the mysterious brand on the foal's hip. "In 15 years of practice, I've never seen marking like this," she admitted. "And these bloodlines—" She gestured to the foal's fine-boned face and unusual coloring. "This isn't just any foal, Emma. This is exceptional breeding." "But who would abandon something so valuable?" Emma wondered aloud, her voice hoarse from the long night. Sarah's face darkened. "I have my suspicions. There's been talk in the veterinary community about some of the new corporate breeding operations. Places more interested in perfect genetics than actual horses. Word is, they discard anything that doesn't meet their standards." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The thought made Emma's stomach turn. She'd heard rumors about these operations, sterile facilities where horses were treated like commodities, where profit margins mattered more than beating hearts. "Well, they made a mistake throwing this one away," she said firmly, "because now it's mine." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Emma, if this foal belongs to who I think it does, they might come looking." "Let them try." Emma's voice was steel. "They lost the right to claim anything when they left it to die in a storm." The vet smiled slightly, recognizing the familiar Chen determination. "Well then, let's make sure your new ward survives. First order of business, this little one needs a name." Emma studied the foal's unusual amber eyes, which seemed to glow in the morning light. "Spirit," she said softly. "Its name is Spirit." The next few days passed in a blur of constant care and tiny victories. Spirit proved to be a fighter, rallying against the pneumonia that had nearly claimed its life. Emma barely left the barn, sleeping on a cot beside the stall, waking at the slightest sound of distress. Word spread quickly through the tight-knit farming community about Sweet Meadow's mysterious new resident. Neighbors stopped by with supplies and offers of help, each one leaving with wide eyes after seeing Spirit's unique markings and remarkable eyes. Joe Henderson, who'd been breeding horses longer than Emma had been alive, stood at the stall door for a full 5 minutes in silence. Finally, he turned to Emma with an expression she'd never seen on his weathered face. "That ain't just good breeding," he declared. "That's something else entirely, something special." Emma knew he was right. As Spirit grew stronger, unusual behaviors began to emerge. The foal seemed to understand complex commands without training, displayed problem-solving abilities that left even Sarah scratching her head, and showed an almost uncanny awareness of human emotions. One morning, Emma found Spirit had somehow opened its stall door and was standing by the medicine cabinet, nudging a specific bottle with its nose. It turned out to be exactly what Emma needed for another horse's treatment, something she hadn't even mentioned aloud. "You're not like other horses, are you?" she whispered to Spirit that night, stroking its now gleaming coat. The foal pressed its forehead against her chest in a gesture that had become their ritual, and Emma felt that same surge of connection she'd experienced on the first night. But peace at Sweet Meadow wasn't destined to last. 2 weeks after Spirit's arrival, a black SUV pulled into the driveway. Emma watched from the barn as 2 men in expensive suits emerged, their polished shoes incongruous against the muddy ground. "Miss Chen?" the taller one called out, his voice carrying an edge of authority. "I'm Richard Walsh from Quantum Genetics. We're here about our property." Emma stepped out of the barn, deliberately wiping her hands on her work jeans. "Your property?" she asked coolly. "I wasn't aware you owned anything here." Walsh produced a tablet, swiping to display documents. "The foal you found. It belongs to our breeding program. It was part of a specialized genetic project that didn't meet specifications. We're here to collect it." "You mean you're here to claim the foal you left to die in a storm?" Emma's voice carried across the yard, drawing the attention of Michael, who was working nearby. He moved closer, his presence supportive but silent. "There seems to be a misunderstanding," Walsh said smoothly. "The foal was humanely separated from the program. If it somehow survived, that's fortunate, but it remains company property. We're prepared to compensate you for any expenses incurred." Emma felt a cold rage building in her chest. Humanely separated. Is that what you call abandoning a newborn in a thunderstorm? Let me be clear, Spirit isn't going anywhere with you. The second man stepped forward, his expression harder. "Ms. Chen, don't make this difficult. We have legal documentation of ownership. We can make this unpleasant if necessary." "Try it," Michael spoke up, his voice quiet but carrying the weight of generations of farmers who'd stood their ground. "See how the community reacts when they hear how Quantum Genetics treats their property. I'm sure the media would love that story." Walsh's face tightened. "We're not the villains here, Ms. Chen. We're advancing the science of breeding, creating the future of equine genetics. Sometimes difficult decisions must be made for the greater good." "The greater good?" Emma stepped closer, her voice shaking with controlled fury. "Let me tell you about the greater good. I spent a night in a storm saving a life you threw away. I watched Spirit fight for every breath, show more courage in its first weeks than you'll show in a lifetime. That's the greater good, not your spreadsheets and genetic algorithms." "This isn't over," Walsh warned, but Emma could see the calculation. In his eyes, they hadn't expected resistance, hadn't planned for a fight. "You're right," Emma agreed. "It's just beginning. Now get off my property." The men retreated to their SUV, but Emma knew this was only the first skirmish. As their taillights disappeared down the drive, she returned to Spirit's stall. The foal stood alert, its amber eyes fixed on her with that unnerving intelligence. "I won't let them take you," she promised, and Spirit pressed against her hand as if in understanding. "Whatever you are, whatever they created you to be, you're home now." That night, Emma sat in the barn office, surrounded by papers and her laptop. Michael brought her coffee and sat heavily in the other chair. "You know they'll be back," he said quietly, "with lawyers next time." Emma nodded, not looking up from her research. "I know, but I also know what I saw in their faces today. Fear. They're not just afraid of bad publicity. They're afraid of Spirit itself, of what it might be capable of." "What do you mean?" Emma turned her laptop to show him dozens of tabs. Scientific articles about genetic engineering, emerging theories about equine intelligence, and mysterious stories from around the world about horses that seem to transcend normal limitations. "I think Spirit is more than a failed experiment," she said softly. "I think it's something they never expected, something that scared them enough to try to eliminate it. And I think we're just beginning to understand what that means. Michael studied his sister's face, recognizing the determination that had kept Sweet Meadow alive through its darkest days. "Well," he said finally, "whatever's coming, you're not facing it alone. Spirit chose you for a reason." Emma glanced at the sleeping foal, its chest rising and falling peacefully. In just 2 weeks, it had brought more life and purpose back to Sweet Meadow than she'd felt in years. Whatever quantum genetics had intended, whatever spirit truly was, Emma knew with absolute certainty that this was where it belonged. As if sensing her thoughts, Spirit lifted its head and nickered softly. In its amber eyes, Emma saw not just intelligence, but a promise of something extraordinary waiting to unfold, of a gift that would emerge from the darkness of that stormy night and change everything they thought they knew about the connection between humans and horses. The war for Spirit's future was just beginning, but Emma Chen was ready. She'd already fought to save Sweet Meadow once. Now she would fight again, not just for a foal's life, but for the right to discover what miracles might be possible when science and nature collided, and love proved stronger than genetic engineering. In the weeks that followed quantum genetics, Spirit's recovery accelerated at a rate that astounded even Dr. Sarah. The foal's innate intelligence became increasingly apparent, displaying abilities that defied conventional understanding of equine behavior. Emma spent every spare moment documenting Spirit's progress, building a case that would prove this extraordinary creature deserved more than being treated as corporate property. One crisp morning, Emma arrived at the barn to find Spirit had arranged its feed buckets in a perfect geometric pattern. The foal stood watching her, those amber eyes gleaming with what could only be described as pride. "Show off," Emma laughed, but her hands trembled as she photographed the scene. This was beyond mere animal intelligence. This was something revolutionary. Dr. Sarah arrived for her weekly checkup, bringing news that sent chills down Emma's spine. 3 more corporate breeding facilities have opened in the state, she reported, examining Spirit's rapidly healing leg. All owned by shell companies, but word is they're all quantum subsidiaries. They're expanding their operation, Emma. Emma watched as Spirit deliberately pressed its nose against Sarah's stethoscope, then walked to the exact spot where the vet usually drew blood for tests. Sarah's eyes widened. "I've never declared my examination routine out loud," she whispered. "How did it know?" "Spirit knows a lot of things," Emma replied softly. "Watch this." She turned to the foal. "Spirit, can you show Dr. Sarah how many days old you are?" The foal moved with purpose, touching its hoof to the ground exactly 37 times. Sarah's clipboard clattered to the floor. That's precisely right, down to the day." But Spirit wasn't finished. The foal moved to the barn wall, where Emma had hung a calendar, deliberately touching its nose to specific dates. First the night of the storm, then today's date, then a date 3 months in the future. The gesture was unmistakably intentional. "It's trying to tell us something," Emma breathed, "about that future date. But what?" Sarah's face had gone pale. "Emma, this isn't just advanced intelligence. This is something else entirely. Something that could change everything we know about animal consciousness." A new voice cut through the barn, which is exactly why Spirit needs to be in proper custody. Alexandra Rivera stood in the doorway, her expensive riding boots and tailored jacket marking her as distinctly out of place in the working barn. Emma recognized her immediately, one of the most prominent equine rights attorneys in the country. Ms. Chen. Alexandra stepped forward, her manner professional but not unkind. I've been watching your situation with great interest. What you've documented here, it's unprecedented, but it's also dangerous, for you and for Spirit. Emma moved protectively closer to the foal. If you're here representing Quantum, I'm not, Alexandra cut in. I'm here representing the future. What's happening with Spirit could revolutionize our understanding of animal intelligence. But quantum genetics will bury it all to protect their patents and processes. They're already moving to discredit you. She pulled out her phone, showing Emma a series of articles. Local papers questioning Sweet Meadow's financial stability. Online forums suggesting Emma had stolen valuable breeding stock. Whispered rumors about mental instability running in the Chen family. They're trying to destroy you before you can expose what they've done, Alexandra explained. But I can help. I've built a case against their entire operation. Spirit isn't the first foal they've disposed of, just the first one to survive and demonstrate these abilities. With your documentation and my legal framework, we can bring them down. Emma studied the lawyer carefully. Why help us? Alexandra's professional demeanor cracked slightly. Because 20 years ago, I watched another corporation destroy my family's ranch in the name of progress, because some things matter more than profit margins, and because that foal just counted out its exact age and pointed to specific dates on a calendar. If that's not worth fighting for, what is? Spirit moved between them, pressing its forehead first against Emma's chest, then turning to touch Alexandra's hand. The lawyer gasped at the contact, and Emma saw the same recognition she'd felt that first night, the sense of something extraordinary, something meant to be. There's more, Emma said quietly. Things I haven't documented because they seemed too impossible. She led Alexandra to her office, pulling out a thick folder. Spirit doesn't just understand commands. It anticipates needs. Last week, it alerted us to a heart condition in one of our older horses before any symptoms showed. It solves complex puzzles we haven't even presented yet, and sometimes I swear it knows things that are going to happen. Alexandra absorbed the information, her expression growing more determined with each revelation. This is bigger than just a legal battle for custody. What Quantum created, intentionally or not, could change our entire understanding of consciousness, of the potential locked within all living beings. Which is exactly why they're terrified, Sarah added, joining them. Spirit represents something beyond their control, beyond anyone's control. A soft nicker drew their attention. Spirit stood in the doorway, its amber eyes moving between them with clear purpose. The foal walked to Emma's desk, deliberately picking up a pencil in its teeth and moving it to a blank piece of paper. The three women watched in stunned silence, as Spirit made deliberate marks on the paper, not random scribbles, but precise dots and lines. When it finished, they leaned in to see what could only be described as a star chart, with one particular constellation marked repeatedly. "That's impossible," Sarah whispered. "No," Alexandra said firmly. "That's proof. Proof that could tear down not just Quantum's operation, but our entire understanding of what's possible." She turned to Emma. "The question is, are you ready for what that means? For the fight it will take?" Emma looked at Spirit, remembering that stormy night that had changed everything. The foal met her gaze with that same unfathomable intelligence, and in its eyes she saw not just the battle ahead, but the revolution it could spark. "Spirit chose Sweet Meadow for a reason," Emma said. "Chose me. Whatever's coming, we face it together." Alexandra nodded, already pulling out her phone. "Then let's get to work. But be prepared. Quantum won't just come with lawyers next time. They'll try to discredit you, isolate you, maybe worse. They've invested millions in their breeding program. They won't let their secrets get exposed without a fight." As if understanding the gravity of the moment, Spirit moved to stand between them. Its presence seemed to fill the small office with an energy that made the air itself feel charged with impossibility. This wasn't just about saving one extraordinary foal anymore. It was about protecting the miracle it represented, the potential it could unlock in all living beings. Emma felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders, but for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid. She had Spirit's unwavering trust, Alexandra's legal expertise, Sarah's medical documentation, and a growing network of supporters who believed in what they were fighting for. "Send out your press releases," Emma told Alexandra. "Contact your scientific experts. Let Quantum try to bury this, because Spirit isn't just going to survive, it's going to change the world, and Sweet Meadow Farm is going to help make that happen." The battle lines were drawn, but none of them could have predicted how Spirit's gift would ultimately manifest, or how it would transform not just their lives, but the very foundation of human-animal understanding. The storm that had brought Spirit to Sweet Meadow was nothing compared to the tempest now brewing on the horizon, a force that would either destroy everything Emma had fought to protect or usher in a new era of possibility that would resonate through generations to come. The media storm hit Sweet Meadow Farm like a tidal wave. Alexandra's carefully crafted press release about Spirit's extraordinary abilities sparked a firestorm of controversy that divided the scientific community and captured the public's imagination. News vans lined the quiet country road, their satellite dishes reaching toward the sky like mechanical sunflowers. Emma stood at her kitchen window, watching the circus unfold. The morning's headlines glared up from her tablet. "Miracle horse or hoax? My quantum genetics denies allegations of abandoned foal. Scientific community debates claims of enhanced equine intelligence." But it was the smaller local story that caught her eye. Sweet Meadow Farm, a legacy of hope returns. Dr. Catherine Wells, a renowned animal behaviorist from Berkeley, arrived early that morning, her reputation for skepticism preceding her. "I've debunked dozens of claims of extraordinary animal intelligence," she announced, setting up her equipment in the barn. "Let's see what your spirit really has to show us." What followed was nothing short of revolutionary. Spirit not only completed every standard intelligence test Catherine presented, but demonstrated an understanding of concepts that challenged the very foundations of animal cognition research. The foal solved complex pattern recognition puzzles, demonstrated advanced spatial reasoning, and showed an understanding of cause and effect that left Catherine speechless. "This isn't just intelligence," Catherine muttered, reviewing her data for the third time. "This is something entirely new. The way Spirit processes information, the speed of learning, the ability to make connections. It's beyond anything we've documented in any species." But it was what happened next that transformed skepticism into wonder. Spirit approached. Catherine's laptop, where she had been documenting her observations. With deliberate precision, the foal used its nose to type out a series of numbers on the keyboard. Catherine's face went white. That's the Fibonacci sequence, she whispered. And not just the basic sequence. These are advanced calculations that even most humans would struggle with. Emma wasn't surprised. She'd been documenting Spirit's mathematical abilities for weeks, but seeing the validation in Catherine's shocked expression was vindication of everything they'd been fighting for. The scientist turned to Emma, her professional detachment cracking. Do you understand what this means? This isn't just about enhanced intelligence. Spirit is demonstrating an understanding of abstract mathematical concepts that we previously thought were unique to human consciousness. This changes everything. Alexandra, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. And this is exactly why Quantum wants to suppress it. Spirit represents a breakthrough they can't control. As if on cue, Spirit moved to the barn's open door, focusing intently on the horizon. Moments later, the distant sound of helicopters filled the air. 3 black choppers appeared over the tree line, bearing down on Sweet Meadow with ominous purpose. Right on schedule, Alexandra muttered, pulling out her phone. They're trying to serve an emergency injunction, but we're ready. The helicopters landed in the front pasture, kicking up dust and sending the other horses into a panic. Only Spirit remained calm, watching with those knowing amber eyes as a team of suits emerged, led by a woman Emma recognized from her research, Dr. Eleanor Blackwood, Quantum's chief genetic engineer. "Miss Chen," Blackwood called out, her voice carrying an authority that had probably never been challenged. "We have a court order to take possession of our property and all related documentation. Please don't make this more difficult than it needs to be." Emma stepped forward, Spirit at her side. "Funny timing, Dr. Blackwood, right as we're documenting proof of Spirit's abilities. Claims that have no scientific basis," Blackwood dismissed. "That animal is the result of proprietary genetic research. Its behavior patterns are artificial constructs, nothing more." Catherine emerged from the barn, her tablet in hand. "Really? Then perhaps you can explain how your artificial construct just demonstrated an understanding of advanced mathematical principles that we've never observed in any other species?" Blackwood's composure slipped slightly. "Dr. Wells, I wasn't aware you were involved in this situation." "I wasn't," Catherine replied coldly. "But I am now. And I've just witnessed abilities that go far beyond anything genetic engineering could create. This isn't about property rights anymore. This is about understanding something revolutionary." Spirit chose that moment to act. With deliberate steps, the foal approached Dr. Blackwood, despite Emma's attempt to hold it back. The scientist instinctively stepped away, but Spirit persisted, finally touching its nose to her hand. The effect was electric. Blackwood gasped, her clinical detachment shattering as she stared into Spirit's amber eyes. For a moment, something passed between them. A connection, an understanding that transcended the barriers of species and science. "You know, don't you?" Blackwood whispered. "You know what you really are." Spirit nickered softly, then turned and walked to the barn wall, where Emma had hung the star chart it had drawn. The message was clear. This wasn't just about genetic engineering or corporate secrets. This was about something far more profound. Blackwood's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. "Stand down," she ordered her team. "Everyone back to the helicopters. Now." "Dr. Blackwood," one of the suits protested, "the injunction is no longer relevant." She cut him off. Her eyes hadn't left Spirit. "Because what we're seeing here isn't what we created. It's something else entirely." She turned to Emma. "Ms. Chen, we need to talk. Not as Quantum's representative, but as a scientist who just realized she's been asking the wrong questions." The helicopters departed as quickly as they had arrived, leaving behind a stunned silence. Catherine was already deep in her data, muttering about paradigm shifts and revolutionary papers. Alexandra was on the phone, with her legal team adapting their strategy to this unexpected development. But Emma's attention was on Spirit, who had returned to her side with an air of quiet satisfaction. "You planned this, didn't you?" she murmured. "You knew they had to see for themselves." Spirit's response was to press its forehead against her chest in their familiar gesture of connection. In that touch, Emma felt not just the intelligence that had amazed Catherine or the mystery that had shaken Blackwood's certainties, but something deeper, a purpose that was only beginning to unfold. Later that evening, as the sun set over Sweet Meadow, Emma sat in the quiet barn with Spirit. The Foal had drawn another star chart, more complex than the first, with that same constellation marked prominently. Dr. Wells had taken photos, promising to consult with astronomers about its significance. "Whatever you are," Emma said softly, "whatever gift you're preparing to share with us, I'm here. We're all here." Spirit's ears flicked forward, its amber eyes reflecting the fading light with an almost otherworldly glow. The battle wasn't over. Quantum's retreat was tactical, not final. But something had shifted today. The world had gotten its first glimpse of Spirit's true nature, and nothing would ever be the same. As darkness fell, Sweet Meadow settled into an uneasy peace. But in Spirit's stall, under that impossible star chart, the future was already writing itself, a future where the boundaries between human and animal consciousness would blur, where ancient wisdom would meet modern science, and where a gift, beyond imagination, would emerge from the heart of a storm-rescued foal. Assistant. The astronomers arrived at Sweet Meadow Farm on a clear autumn evening, their high-powered telescopes and sophisticated equipment transforming the peaceful pasture into a makeshift observatory. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a leading expert in astrobiology from NASA, studied Spirit star charts with growing amazement. "These aren't random markings," she declared, comparing the Foal's drawings to her computerized star maps. "This is a precise representation of a star system we only recently discovered. The constellation Spirit keeps highlighting. It's not visible to the naked eye. We found it using our most advanced satellites just months ago." Emma watched as Spirit stood perfectly still, its amber eyes fixed on the darkening sky. The Foal had been unusually quiet all day, as if waiting for something. Dr. Blackwood, who had returned to Sweet Meadow as an independent researcher rather than Quantum's representative, worked alongside Elena, her previous certainties about genetic engineering crumbling with each new revelation. "The genetic modifications we made were meant to enhance physical performance and basic problem-solving abilities," Blackwood admitted, reviewing her data. "Nothing we did could explain this level of astronomical knowledge. It's as if Spirit is connected to something far beyond our understanding." As night fell, the assembled scientists gathered around their equipment, tracking the movement of celestial bodies across the sky. Spirit began to pace, its hooves marking a precise pattern in the earth that matched the arrangement of stars overhead. The air seemed to crackle with anticipation. Suddenly, Spirit threw back its head and released a sound unlike anything Emma had ever heard. Not quite a whinny, not quite a song, but something that made the very air vibrate with harmonic frequencies. The scientists' instruments went wild, recording energy patterns that defied explanation. "Look!" Catherine Wells pointed to the sky, where a strange aurora had begun to dance, its colors shifting in perfect synchronization with Spirit's call. The foal's coat seemed to shimmer with an inner light, the mysterious brand on its hip glowing with an otherworldly radiance. Dr. Rodriguez's satellite phone buzzed urgently. "We're picking up signals," she reported, her voice tight with excitement. "Patterns matching Spirit's frequencies, coming from the exact star system it drew. This isn't just communication, this is confirmation." Emma felt a wave of understanding wash over her as Spirit turned those knowing eyes in her direction. This was what the foal had been preparing them for all along. It wasn't just a genetically enhanced horse. It was a bridge, a messenger, carrying knowledge that could transform humanity's understanding of consciousness and their place in the universe. The revelations sparked a chain reaction that rippled through the scientific community. Teams of researchers descended on Sweet Meadow, each bringing new perspectives and equipment to document Spirit's abilities. But it was the foal's impact on individuals that proved most profound. A group of autistic children visited the farm, and Spirit demonstrated an extraordinary ability to connect with them, communicating in ways that bypassed verbal limitations. The foal helped a veteran with PTSD find peace, somehow sharing calming frequencies that eased his traumatic memories. Medical researchers discovered that Spirit's presence altered brainwave patterns in ways that promoted healing and neural regeneration. "It's as if Spirit is teaching us a new language," Dr. Wells observed, watching the foal work with a young girl who hadn't spoken since a traumatic accident. Not just of words or mathematics, but of consciousness itself. Alexandra Rivera, who had become much more than just their lawyer, worked tirelessly to protect Spirit's freedom while helping to establish protocols for sharing its gifts with the world. "We're not just fighting for one extraordinary being anymore," she explained to the gathered press. "We're fighting for a new understanding of what's possible when we open our minds to connections we never imagined." Quantum genetics made one final attempt to assert control, not through legal channels, but through public opinion. They launched a campaign suggesting Spirit's abilities were dangerous, unpredictable, a threat to natural order. But their efforts backfired spectacularly when Spirit demonstrated an ability to detect and heal genetic disorders in other horses, including problems created by Quantum's own breeding program. Dr. Blackwood, in a public statement that shook the corporate world, exposed the full extent of Quantum's unethical practices while championing the need to protect and learn from Spirit. "We thought we were pushing the boundaries of genetic science," she testified. "Instead, we accidentally opened a door to something far more extraordinary and nearly destroyed it out of fear and greed." The transformation of Sweet Meadow Farm continued as well. What had once been a struggling family operation became a center for interspecies communication research, healing, and education. Emma established a foundation to ensure the facility would always prioritize compassion and understanding over profit. honoring both Spirit's gifts and her family's legacy. One evening, as the research teams packed up their equipment and the day's visitors departed, Emma sat with Spirit in their favorite spot beneath the stars. The foal's mathematical and healing abilities had proven to be just the beginning. Each day brought new discoveries, new connections, new understanding of the bridge Spirit was building between worlds. "You knew, didn't you?" Emma mused, stroking Spirit's sleek neck. "That night in the storm when I found you, you were exactly where you needed to be." Spirit pressed its forehead against her chest, and Emma felt that familiar surge of connection, stronger now with understanding. The foal wasn't just a miracle of genetics or a messenger from the stars. It was a reminder that the universe's greatest gifts often came disguised as challenges, wrapped in storm clouds and tragedy, waiting for someone brave enough to believe in possibilities. Dr. Rodriguez's team had decoded more of the celestial signals, revealing patterns that suggested Spirit wasn't alone, that somewhere among the stars others waited, watching humanity's response to this first ambassador. The foal's gift wasn't just its extraordinary abilities, but the way it was teaching humanity to expand their understanding of consciousness, connection, and their place in the cosmic dance. Sweet Meadow Farm had become more than a sanctuary. It was a beacon, drawing people from around the world who sensed that something revolutionary was emerging from the partnership between a determined young woman and a remarkable foal. Spirit's gift was multiplying, spreading through every life it touched, creating a network of understanding that transcended traditional boundaries of species and science. As night deepened and the first stars appeared, Spirit began its evening song, its harmonics joining with the cosmic frequencies in a melody that spoke of bridges being built, of barriers falling away, of a future where the impossible became possible through the power of connection and trust. Emma Chen, who had once fought just to keep her family's farm alive, now stood at the center of a revolution in consciousness. But as she watched Spirit communicate with the stars, she knew that every moment, from that stormy rescue to the worldwide transformation now unfolding, had been part of a greater pattern, a destiny written in the language of love, courage, and the unlimited potential of the heart to recognize truth in unexpected forms. As winter descended on Sweet Meadow Farm, bringing with it a blanket of pristine snow, the true depth of Spirit's gift began to manifest in ways that no one could have predicted. The foal, now almost a year old, had grown into a striking young horse whose presence commanded attention not just for its unusual appearance, but for the aura of wisdom that seemed to emanate from its very being. Emma woke one morning to find Spirit standing in the center of the main paddock, surrounded by intricate patterns drawn in the fresh snow. The designs weren't made by hoofprints. Somehow the snow itself had been transformed into delicate crystalline structures that caught the morning light like prisms, sending rainbow fragments dancing across the white landscape. Dr. Miranda Chang, a quantum physicist who had recently joined their research team, spent hours photographing and analyzing the patterns. "These aren't random," she explained, her voice trembling with excitement. "They're perfect representations of quantum field equations, mathematical expressions of the fundamental forces that hold our universe together. But they're expressed in a way we've never seen before, a language that bridges classical and quantum physics." The discovery sparked a new wave of scientific interest, but it was the practical applications of Spirit's gift that truly began to change lives. A group of children from the local children's hospital had been visiting the farm regularly, drawn to Spirit's gentle presence. During one such visit, something extraordinary occurred. Lisa, a 12-year-old fighting an aggressive form of leukemia, was sitting with Spirit when the horse began to hum its now familiar cosmic melody. The sound changed, becoming more focused, and those present watched in amazement as visible waves of soft light seemed to flow from Spirit to Lisa. When doctors examined her the next day, they found her cancer cells were responding to treatment in unprecedented ways. It's as if Spirit is teaching the body's own healing systems to work in harmony with our medical interventions, Dr. Sarah Martinez explained to the astonished medical team. Not curing diseases directly, but showing us how to activate our natural healing abilities at a quantum level. The implications were staggering. Spirit wasn't just communicating with the stars, it was showing humanity how to tap into the fundamental forces that connected all living things. Each healing session was documented, studied, and gradually replicated using technology designed to mimic Spirit's frequencies. But with greater recognition came greater challenges. Government agencies began taking interest, not all of them with benevolent intentions. Emma found herself navigating a complex web of offers and threats, each claiming to have humanity's best interests at heart. "They don't understand," Emma confided to Alexandra one evening, watching Spirit work with a group of veterans struggling with PTSD. "This isn't something that can be controlled or weaponized. Spirit's gift only works through connection, through trust and openness." As if to demonstrate this truth, Spirit began working with the veterans in a new way. Instead of individual sessions, the horse created a circle of healing, encouraging the soldiers to join hands while it moved around them, its humming creating a field of energy that participants described as pure peace and coming home to yourself. One veteran, James Cooper, who hadn't spoken about his war experiences in years, found himself sharing not just his trauma, but his hopes for the future. It's like Spirit shows you that everything, all the pain, all the fear, is part of a bigger pattern, he explained, his voice steady for the first time in years. And once you see the pattern, you can choose to transform it into something beautiful. The breakthrough with the veterans attracted the attention of Dr. Amara Patel, a pioneer in trauma research. She arrived at Sweet Meadow with an array of advanced brain imaging equipment, hoping to understand how Spirit's abilities were affecting neural patterns. What she discovered left her scientific framework in shambles. Spirit isn't just influencing individual brains, she reported, reviewing her scans. It's creating a field of coherence that allows multiple nervous systems to synchronize and heal together. We're seeing the emergence of what I can only describe as a collective consciousness, facilitated by frequencies we're just beginning to understand. The implications extended beyond healing. Spirit began teaching regular classes, gatherings, where people sat in the snow-covered paddock, while the horse demonstrated principles of quantum mechanics through movement and sound. Scientists watched in amazement as complex theoretical concepts were expressed through dance-like movements that even children could grasp. It's showing us that our traditional methods of learning and teaching are just the tip of the iceberg, Dr. Chang observed. There are ways of understanding the universe that don't require years of mathematical training. They just require us to open our awareness to different forms of communication. Emma found herself at the center of this evolutionary leap, not as a controller or interpreter, but as a witness and facilitator. Spirit had chosen Sweet Meadow not just as a sanctuary, but as a classroom for humanity's next step in consciousness. The farm itself began to transform. The crystalline patterns Spirit created in the snow seemed to take root in the earth itself, creating geometric gardens that bloomed with flowers never before seen on earth. The air hummed with harmonics that visitors could feel in their bones, frequencies that brought tears of joy to some and profound revelations to others. One afternoon, as snow fell in soft spirals around them, Spirit led Emma to the highest point on the farm. There, overlooking the transformed landscape, the horse began a new kind of communication. Instead of stars or mathematics, Spirit shared a vision of the future, not through words or pictures, but through a direct transmission of understanding. Emma saw communities worldwide learning to connect through the same quantum fields Spirit used for healing. She saw children naturally accessing abilities that current science considered impossible. She saw humanity beginning to understand its place in a vast network of conscious beings stretching across the cosmos. "This is why you came," Emma whispered, understanding at last. "Not just to heal or teach, but to show us what we're capable of becoming." Spirit's response was to create a new pattern in the snow, more complex than any before. As the design completed itself, Dr. Chang rushed up the hill, her instruments going wild. "The pattern," she gasped. "It's a key, a formula for translating quantum phenomena into biological evolution. Spirit isn't just teaching us about the universe, it's showing us how to consciously participate in our own evolution." The snow continued to fall as word of this latest breakthrough spread through the research team. But Emma remained on the hilltop with Spirit, watching the transformed landscape of Sweet Meadow Farm glitter in the winter light. Each crystalline pattern, each harmonic note, each healing circle was part of a larger design, a gift that would continue to unfold, teaching humanity to see itself and its place in the cosmos in entirely new ways. As the sun set, painting the snow-covered world in shades of rose and gold, Spirit began its evening song. But this time, others joined in. The veterans, the children, the scientists, their voices merging with Spirit's cosmic frequencies in a harmony that spoke of humanity's potential to transform itself through understanding, connection, and love. Sweet Meadow Farm had become more than a sanctuary or a research center. It was a seed of transformation, planted in the heart of a storm and nurtured by the trust between a remarkable horse and those who dared to believe in possibilities beyond their understanding. Spirit's gift was still unfolding, each day bringing new wonders, new healings, new ways of seeing the world and humanity's place within it. Spring arrived at Sweet Meadow Farm in a burst of unprecedented beauty. The geometric gardens Spirit had created now bloomed with flowers that seemed to pulse with their own inner light, their petals arranged in patterns that matched the cosmic frequencies the horse had been teaching. But it was the arrival of Maya, a non-verbal child with severe autism, that sparked the next phase of Spirit's extraordinary mission. Maya's parents had heard about Spirit's work with special needs children and brought her to the farm as a last resort. Traditional therapies had failed to help their daughter connect with the world around her. The moment Maya stepped onto Sweet Meadow's grounds, something shifted. The usually agitated child grew still, her eyes fixed on Spirit with an intensity that brought tears to her mother's eyes. Spirit approached Maya with deliberate grace, and what happened next left even the most seasoned researchers speechless. The horse and child began to move in perfect synchronization, creating patterns in the spring grass that exactly matched the quantum equations Dr. Chang had been studying. But more remarkably, Maya began to hum the same cosmic frequencies. Spirit used for healing. She's not just copying spirit, Dr. Patel observed, monitoring Maya's brain activity. They're in complete neural synchronization. It's as if spirit has given her a new language, one that bypasses traditional communication barriers entirely. Within weeks, news of Maya's transformation brought families from around the world, each carrying hope for their own children who struggled to connect through conventional means. Spirit worked with each child differently, but the results were consistently extraordinary. Non-verbal children began expressing themselves through movement and sound. Children with severe emotional challenges found peace in the quantum harmonies. Spirit taught them to create. Dr. Elena Rodriguez returned to Sweet Meadow with new data from her NASA colleagues. The star system Spirit had identified was showing increasing signs of activity. We're detecting patterns that match the frequencies Spirit uses for healing, she reported. It's as if something out there is responding to what's happening here. The implications became clearer when Spirit began working with the children in groups, teaching them to create collective energy fields that could influence physical reality. Under the horse's guidance, they learned to manipulate light, to accelerate plant growth, and even to affect weather patterns on a local scale. Spirit isn't just teaching them tricks, Dr. Chang explained to astonished parents. It's showing all of us, that consciousness itself is a force that can interact directly with the physical world. These children, whose society often dismisses as disabled, are actually pioneers of human potential. Emma watched these developments with a mix of awe and understanding. She remembered that stormy night when she'd found Spirit, how impossible everything had seemed then. Now, impossibilities were becoming daily occurrences at Sweet Meadow Farm. The breakthrough came on a warm spring morning when Maya, working with Spirit and a group of other children, created a visible bridge of light between their circle and the strange flowers in Spirit's geometric garden. The plants responded, their blooms opening to reveal centers that pulsed with the same frequencies the children were producing. They're quantum receivers, Dr. Chang realized, her instruments recording unprecedented data. Spirit has been cultivating a biological communication network. The flowers, the patterns, the frequencies, they're all part of a larger system for accessing and channeling universal consciousness. The children, led by Maya, began teaching adults how to access this network. It turned out that those society labeled as different were actually more attuned to these higher frequencies. Their unique neurological wiring made them natural bridges between ordinary consciousness and the quantum field Spirit was revealing. James Cooper, the veteran who had found healing through Spirit's work, started a program bringing other veterans to work with the children. Together, they learned to use the quantum frequencies for healing trauma, not just in themselves, but in the land itself. Areas of Sweet Meadow that had been damaged by past farming practices began to regenerate at impossible rates. The transformation was drawing attention from unexpected quarters. Dr. Blackwood, who had continued her independent research at the farm, received an urgent call from her former colleagues at Quantum Genetics. Their other experimental subjects, the ones they had deemed failures, were showing signs of awakening. Something about Spirit's work was triggering a response in them. It's as if Spirit is activating a potential that was always there, Blackwood explained to Emma. We thought we were creating enhanced beings, but we were really just scratching the surface of what's naturally possible when consciousness is allowed to evolve freely. The spring days grew longer, and Sweet Meadow became a symphony of light, sound, and transformation. The children worked with Spirit daily, each session bringing new discoveries. They learned to communicate across distances without words, to heal through intention, to see the quantum patterns that connected all living things. Maya, who had not spoken a word in her 8 years of life, surprised everyone one evening during a healing circle. As Spirit led the group in their cosmic harmony, she suddenly said, clear as a bell, "We are all stars." Her words carried a truth that resonated through everyone present. Spirit had been showing them this all along, that each being contained the same cosmic intelligence that powered the stars, that consciousness itself was a force as fundamental as gravity or light. The NASA team's instruments recorded a surge of activity from the distant star system at the exact moment Maya spoke. Dr. Rodriguez's eyes were wide as she checked and rechecked her data. The signals, they're exact matches for the harmonic patterns Spirit first taught us. It's as if they're celebrating a milestone. Emma found Spirit later that night, standing in the center of the geometric garden. The horse's amber eyes reflected starlight with an otherworldly wisdom. Above them, the constellation Spirit had first drawn all those months ago seemed to pulse with new energy. "You're not just teaching us to heal or communicate differently," Emma said softly. "You're helping us remember who we really are." Spirit's response was to create a new pattern in the earth, more complex and beautiful than any before. As the design completed itself, the strange flowers began to glow with an inner light that spread in waves across the farm. Children who had stayed late for healing sessions emerged from their homes, drawn by the energy. Maya led them in a song that matched the cosmic frequencies perfectly. The spring night filled with harmony as more people arrived, called by something they couldn't explain but deeply recognized. Scientists and skeptics, parents and children, veterans and healers, all found themselves part of a growing circle of light centered on Spirit, and the children who had learned to speak its language. Sweet Meadow Farm had become more than a sanctuary or a research center. It was a beacon, a prototype of what was possible when humanity opened itself to the greater consciousness that connected all things. Spirit's gift wasn't just about healing or communication. It was about awakening the stardust that had been sleeping in human DNA all along. As the impromptu gathering continued under the stars, Emma realized that this was just the beginning. Spirit had chosen Sweet Meadow as the starting point for a transformation that would ripple out across the world, led by those society had often overlooked or underestimated. The real gift wasn't the abilities Spirit was teaching. It was the remembrance that every being, no matter how different or damaged they might seem, carried within them the power to connect with the cosmic dance of creation itself. Summer swept across Sweet Meadow Farm, bringing with it an unprecedented flowering of both nature and consciousness. The transformation that had begun with Spirit's healing work now expanded in ways that challenged even the most visionary scientists' imaginations. The geometric gardens had evolved into what Dr. Chang called living quantum computers, their blooms pulsing with patterns that processed information from both Earth and the distant star system. One sweltering afternoon, Maya gathered her growing circle of quantum-sensitive children beneath the ancient oak tree where Spirit had first been found. The horse stood in their midst as the children joined hands, their combined frequencies creating visible waves of light that rippled through the air. Suddenly, the oak tree began to glow from within, its leaves shimmering with patterns that matched the star charts Spirit had drawn months ago. "The trees remember," Maya announced, her voice carrying the wisdom of ages. "They've always been part of the network. Spirit is helping us remember too." Dr. Rodriguez's team had set up permanent monitoring stations around the farm, recording the increasing communications between Sweet Meadow and the distant star system. The signals had grown stronger, more complex, forming what appeared to be a complete language of light and frequency. "It's not just data," Dr. Rodriguez explained, during an emergency conference with global scientists. "These transmissions contain blueprints for technological and biological evolution. Spirit isn't just teaching us to communicate, it's helping us prepare for the next stage of human development." The evidence was undeniable. Children who worked regularly with Spirit began displaying abilities that defied conventional science. They could perceive quantum fields directly, manipulate energy with thought, and access a universal database of knowledge that seemed to exist in the space between atoms. James Cooper's veteran program had expanded to include survivors of all types of trauma. Together with the children, they learned to use quantum frequencies to literally rewrite the neural patterns of PTSD, addiction, and deep emotional wounds. The healing went beyond individual recovery. Participants found themselves able to connect with and heal the collective trauma stored in the land itself. "The earth holds memories," James explained to a group of newcomers. "Spirit showed us that trauma isn't just personal. It's part of a larger pattern that can be transformed when we remember our connection to everything." The breakthrough that caught the world's attention came when Maya and her quantum-sensitive friends demonstrated the ability to clean polluted water through concentrated conscious intention. Working with Spirit, they created a frequency pattern that restored a contaminated stream to pristine condition in minutes. Environmental scientists flocked to Sweet Meadow, desperate to understand and replicate the process. But Spirit made it clear through its teachings that technology alone wasn't the answer. The children could achieve these results because they had learned to access the fundamental consciousness that connected all matter. "It's about remembering that we're not separate from nature," Maya explained to a stunned group of Harvard researchers. "The water knows how to heal itself. We just have to remind it of its original pattern." The implications were revolutionary. Spirit had been preparing humanity for this moment since its arrival, teaching not just new abilities, but a new way of existing in harmony with the quantum field that underlay all reality. Dr. Blackwood, who had continued her research at Sweet Meadow, made a startling discovery. The genetic modifications quantum had attempted weren't creating new abilities. They were activating dormant potential that existed in all living things. Spirit's presence was catalyzing an awakening that had been encoded in Earth's biology. "From the beginning, we thought we were playing God with genetics," she admitted during a global symposium, "but we were just fumbling in the dark. Spirit's gift isn't about enhancing life. It's about remembering what life has always been capable of." The summer days grew longer, and Sweet Meadow became a living laboratory of consciousness evolution. The children worked with Spirit daily, each session bringing new revelations. They learned to accelerate plant growth, communicate with animals, and even influence weather patterns through collective intention. But it was their work with healing that drew the most attention. Working together, Spirit and the children developed protocols for treating everything from cancer to genetic disorders. Their methods didn't rely on external intervention. Instead, they taught patients to access their own quantum healing abilities. The body knows how to heal, Spirit communicated through its frequencies. Illness is just a pattern out of alignment with the universal field. When we remember our connection to the whole, healing happens naturally. The medical establishment was forced to confront a paradigm shift as terminal patients began walking out of Sweet Meadow, completely recovered. The children could see the quantum patterns of disease and guide people in realigning their own energy fields with health. One evening, as the sun set over the transformed landscape, Maya led her friends in a new kind of healing ceremony. Instead of working with individuals, they created a field of coherent energy that expanded outward, touching everyone within miles of the farm. People reported spontaneous healings, profound spiritual insights, and a deep sense of connection to all life. The quantum flowers in Spirit's garden blazed with light, their patterns matching the frequencies coming from the star system. "It's time," Maya announced, her eyes reflecting the same otherworldly wisdom as Spirit's. "They're ready to meet us now." The NASA team's instruments recorded unprecedented activity in the targeted constellation. The signals formed clear patterns. An invitation, Dr. Rodriguez realized, for humanity to join a larger community of conscious beings. Emma found Spirit standing in the center of the original geometric garden, its amber eyes fixed on the darkening sky. The horse had grown into its full power, its presence radiating a majesty that took her breath away. "You've been preparing us all along," she whispered, "teaching us how to be ready for what's coming." Spirit's response was to create a new pattern, more magnificent than any before. As it formed, the quantum flowers began to pulse in synchronization, their light forming a spiral that reached toward the stars. The children gathered spontaneously, adding their frequencies to the growing harmony. Sweet Meadow Farm had become more than anyone could have imagined, not just a sanctuary or healing center, but a bridge between worlds, a prototype of humanity's potential future. Spirit's gift wasn't just about developing new abilities or healing old wounds. It was about remembering humanity's true place in the cosmic dance of consciousness. As the summer night deepened, more people arrived, drawn by an inner knowing they couldn't explain. Scientists and skeptics, healers and seekers all found themselves part of an expanding circle of light. The frequencies they created together reached toward the stars, carrying Earth's response to an invitation that had been waiting since the beginning of time. Spirit had chosen Sweet Meadow as the starting point for a transformation that would ripple across the planet, led by children whose unique sensitivity made them natural bridges between worlds. The real gift wasn't the abilities being developed. It was the remembrance that every being carried within them the power to participate consciously in the evolution of life itself. The day of contact arrived with the first rays of dawn painting, the sky in colors that had never been seen on Earth before. The quantum gardens at Sweet Meadow Farm pulsed with otherworldly light, their patterns shifting in perfect harmony with signals now visible to the naked eye. Dancing lights in the constellation Spirit had first identified. Maya stood in the center of the largest geometric pattern, surrounded by her circle of quantum-sensitive children. Their abilities had grown exponentially over the past months, but today felt different. The air itself seemed charged with possibility, every molecule vibrating with anticipation. "They're coming," Maya announced, her voice carrying an authority that belied her young age. "Spirit has prepared us for this moment." Dr. Rodriguez's instruments were recording unprecedented levels of quantum activity. The strange flowers Spirit had cultivated were releasing waves of light that formed intricate three-dimensional patterns in the air, creating what appeared to be a living gateway between dimensions. "It's not just communication anymore," Dr. Chang explained to the assembled scientists and government officials who had gathered to witness the event. "Spirit and the children are literally restructuring local space-time. They're creating a bridge." The horse stood majestically beside Maya, its amber eyes focused on the developing light structure. Over the months, Spirit had grown into a being of extraordinary beauty and power, its coat shimmering with the same inner light as the quantum gardens. The mysterious brand on its hip now pulsed in rhythm with the distant stars. James Cooper and his group of veterans formed a protective circle around the children, their own newly developed abilities adding strength to the quantum field. Through their work with Spirit, they had learned to channel their military training into maintaining the delicate energetic balance needed for what was about to occur. "Remember," James called out to his team, "we're not just protecting physical space. We're holding the frequency of welcome, of peace. This is what all our training was really for." Emma watched from nearby, her heart thundering with the magnitude of the moment. Sweet Meadow Farm, once a struggling family operation on the verge of collapse, had become the nexus point for humanity's greatest leap forward. Spirit had chosen this place, chosen her, for reasons that were only now becoming fully clear. The light patterns intensified as the morning progressed. The quantum flowers began releasing spores that floated upward, each one a perfect replica of the star chart Spirit had first drawn. As they reached a certain height, they burst into tiny points of light that joined the larger pattern forming above the farm. Dr. Blackwood, monitoring the biological aspects of the event, made a stunning discovery. "The flowers aren't just creating light," she announced, her voice trembling with excitement. "They're generating a new form of DNA, a bridge between terrestrial and cosmic genetics. Spirit hasn't just been teaching us, it's been helping us evolve." The children began to sing, their voices carrying frequencies that matched the cosmic signals. Maya led them in a harmony that seemed to come from the stars themselves. The sound resonated through everyone present, awakening dormant abilities, opening minds to new possibilities. Suddenly, Spirit reared up, its form silhouetted against the morning sky. A beam of pure light shot from its heart to the center of the geometric pattern. The quantum gateway stabilized, its swirling colors settling into a stable portal of shimmering energy. Through this doorway between worlds they came, beings of light and consciousness, their forms shifting and flowing like living starlight. They moved with a grace that spoke of evolution far beyond physical limitation, yet their presence carried a warmth that felt surprisingly familiar. "Welcome, siblings," Maya said, speaking for all humanity. "We've been waiting." The beings responded not with words, but with waves of pure understanding that washed through everyone present. They shared visions of a universe teeming with conscious Life of countless civilizations learning and growing together, of an underlying field of intelligence that connected everything in existence. Spirit stepped forward, touching its nose to the nearest light being. In that contact, the truth became clear. Spirit was indeed a bridge, created through the combined efforts of multiple civilizations to help humanity remember its cosmic heritage and take its place in the greater community of conscious beings. The light beings shared their story through direct transmission of knowledge. They had been watching Earth's development for millennia, waiting for the right moment to make contact. Spirit's genetic structure had been carefully designed to activate dormant potential in human DNA, preparing humanity for this meeting. But they had never expected the twist of fate that brought Spirit to Sweet Meadow Farm, to Emma Chen and her determination to protect a wounded foal. That seemingly random act of compassion had created the perfect conditions for Spirit's gift to unfold naturally, through love rather than scientific manipulation. Your heart created the real bridge. The beings communicated to Emma. Spirit's abilities could only work through a connection of pure intention. The morning stretched into afternoon as the light beings shared their knowledge. They taught. The children knew harmonics that could heal on a planetary scale. They showed the scientists principles that unified quantum mechanics with consciousness itself. They offered the veterans techniques for transmuting the energy of conflict into forces of creation. But their greatest gift was the invitation. Earth was now ready to join a vast network of evolved civilizations, to take its place in a cosmic community that had been waiting with open arms. Humanity's unique contribution, they explained, was its capacity for heart-centered transformation, its ability to turn challenges into opportunities for growth. Sweet Meadow Farm would become one of many bridge points between Earth and the cosmic community. The quantum gardens would spread, creating centers of conscious evolution around the planet. The children who had learned Spirit's frequencies would become teachers, helping others awaken to their own latent abilities. As the day drew to a close, the light beings prepared to depart, not as a goodbye, but as the beginning of an ongoing relationship. They left behind tools for communication, seeds for new quantum gardens, and most importantly, the knowledge that humanity was not alone in its journey of awakening. Spirit and Maya led one final harmony, joining human voices with cosmic frequencies in a song of gratitude and celebration. The quantum gateway shimmered with new colors as the light beings returned to their realm, leaving behind a world forever, changed by their visit. That evening, as stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Emma found Spirit in their favorite spot beneath the ancient oak. The horse's presence radiated a satisfaction that needed no words. Its mission was not ending, but transforming, growing along with the consciousness of all those it had touched. Sweet Meadow Farm had become more than a sanctuary or even a bridge between worlds. It was a living example of what was possible when hearts opened to the extraordinary, when courage and compassion created space for miracles to unfold. Spirit's gift had never been just about healing or communication. It was about remembering humanity's true heritage as conscious creators in an infinite, living universe. As night fell fully, the quantum gardens glowed with their inner light, their patterns matching the stars overhead. Maya and her young friends continued their celebrations, their laughter carrying the frequencies of joy and wonder. The veterans stood watch with new purpose, guardians not of borders, but of possibility. Scientists worked eagerly with their new understanding, finding ways to share these discoveries with the world. And Spirit, the remarkable being who had started it all, stood watching over them all, its amber eyes reflecting the light of distant stars that no longer seemed so far away. The bridge had been built, the connection established, and the real journey was just beginning. In the months following first contact, Sweet Meadow Farm underwent a transformation that mirrored the changes spreading across the globe. The quantum gardens had expanded beyond their original boundaries, their living intelligence creating patterns that could be seen from space. But it was the emergence of what became known as the Spirit Network that truly changed everything. Maya and her young friends discovered they could connect with other quantum-sensitive children around the world through the frequencies Spirit had taught them. These connections formed spontaneously, creating a web of consciousness that transcended language and culture. Children who had never met could share thoughts, feelings, and healing energies across vast distances. The network was always there, Maya explained to a gathering of international scientists. Spirit just helped us remember how to access it. Every living thing is part of it, humans, animals, plants, even the earth itself. The proof of her words manifested in extraordinary ways. The quantum gardens began appearing spontaneously. In places of need, war zones, disaster areas, polluted cities. Each garden seemed to emerge overnight, its flowers pulsing with the same healing frequencies as those at Sweet Meadow. Dr. Chang, working with a global team of researchers, made a groundbreaking discovery. The gardens aren't just growing, she announced. They're evolving in response to local needs. In areas of conflict, they produce frequencies that promote peace. In polluted regions, they clean the air and water. They're like living environmental healing systems. James Cooper and his veterans had become teachers themselves, traveling to crisis points around the world. They helped people understand the connection between personal and planetary healing, showing how individual transformation could ripple out to affect entire communities. Spirit showed us that trauma isn't just personal, James would explain. It's stored in the land, in the collective consciousness. But that means healing can spread the same way. Emma watched these developments from Sweet Meadow, which had become a center for what they now called conscious evolution. People came from around the world to learn the harmonics Spirit had taught, to understand the bridge between science and spirit that the horse had helped create. The light beings maintained regular contact through the quantum gateway, sharing knowledge and guidance as humanity took its first steps into a larger cosmic community. But they made it clear that Earth's evolution had to unfold in its own unique way. Your species carries a special gift, they communicated through the frequencies. Your capacity for heart-centered transformation is unique in the universe. That's why Spirit chose to work through connection and love rather than pure technology. Spirit itself had grown into a being of extraordinary presence. Its coat now shimmered with starlight, and its amber eyes held wisdom that seemed to span galaxies. But it maintained the gentle connection with Emma that had begun on that stormy night, their bond a reminder that the greatest transformations often start with simple acts of compassion. One remarkable morning, Spirit led Emma and Maya to a new pattern forming in the largest quantum garden. As they watched, the flowers arranged themselves into a living map of Earth's energy grid. Points of light pulsed across the pattern, showing where new quantum gardens were emerging. "It's happening faster than anyone expected," Maya said, her voice filled with wonder. "The Earth is remembering too. Dr. Rodriguez's team confirmed what the children had sensed. The planet's electromagnetic field was shifting, aligning with the higher frequencies the light beings had shared. This wasn't just about individual evolution anymore. It was about the transformation of an entire world. The changes weren't without challenges. Some feared the rapid evolution, seeing it as a threat to existing power structures. Others tried to control or weaponize the new abilities emerging in the quantum-sensitive children. But Spirit had prepared for this too. The horse worked with Maya and her friends to create what they called harmony bubbles, fields of coherent energy that naturally dissolved fear and promoted understanding. These bubbles expanded outward from the quantum gardens, helping ease the transition for those struggling to accept the changes. Dr. Blackwood made another crucial discovery while studying Spirit's genetics. The modifications we made at Quantum weren't random, she explained. They were guided by something beyond our understanding. We thought we were in control, but we were being led toward this moment all along. The revelation sparked a new understanding of evolution itself. Spirit had demonstrated that consciousness wasn't just a product of biology. It was the driving force behind biological development. The light beings confirmed this, sharing stories of how conscious intention had shaped the evolution of countless species across the universe. As autumn painted Sweet Meadow in brilliant colors, Emma found Spirit standing in the spot where she had first discovered the injured foal. The horse was creating a new pattern in the earth, more complex than any before. As the design completed itself, the quantum flowers responded, their light forming a holographic display of possible futures. "You're showing us the next step," Emma realized, watching the shifting images. This was never just about Earth joining the cosmic community. It's about helping create something entirely new. Maya and her young friends gathered, adding their frequencies to Spirit's projection. The hologram expanded, showing a future where humanity had learned to work consciously with the forces of evolution, where the bridge between spirit and science had become a foundation for unlimited creation. The light beings appeared through the quantum gateway, their presence now familiar and welcome. They shared their excitement about Earth's rapid progress, explaining that humanity's heart-centered approach to evolution was inspiring changes throughout the galaxy. "Your world is becoming a teaching center," they communicated. "Other civilizations are learning from your example, seeing how love and consciousness can transform reality itself." As night fell, Sweet Meadow Farm glowed with living light. The quantum gardens pulsed with new frequencies, the flowers singing harmonies that matched the stars. Maya led her friends in a celebration of sound and light, their combined consciousness, reaching out to touch minds and hearts around the world. James and his veterans stood watch with proud hearts, understanding that their role as protectors had evolved into something far more profound. They were guardians, not of boundaries, but of possibility itself. Spirit moved through the celebration, its presence a reminder of how this extraordinary journey had begun, with one person's choice to help a wounded creature on a stormy night. The horse's gift had never been just about advanced abilities or cosmic connections. It was about remembering the power of compassion to transform reality itself. Emma watched the joyful gathering, her heart full of gratitude. Sweet Meadow Farm had become more than she could have ever imagined, not just a sanctuary or even a bridge between worlds, but a seed of conscious evolution that would continue growing and spreading its light across the universe. As the stars wheeled overhead, Spirit created one final pattern for the day, a simple heart shape that pulsed with pure love. In that moment, everyone present understood the deepest truth the horse had come to share, that in an infinite universe of endless possibility, love remained the most powerful force for transformation. The journey that had begun with a storm-rescued foal had become a pathway to humanity's greatest adventure, the conscious evolution of life itself. And Sweet Meadow Farm, once a struggling family operation, now stood as a beacon of hope and possibility, a living reminder that the most extraordinary gifts often come disguised as challenges, waiting for someone brave enough to listen to their heart. The first snows of winter blanketed Sweet Meadow Farm in pristine white, but the quantum gardens bloomed defiantly through the frost, their light creating auroras that danced across the night sky. Spirit had grown into a being of such extraordinary presence that even the snow seemed to part around its hooves, leaving patterns of sacred geometry in its wake. On this particular morning, Maya gathered her expanded circle of quantum-sensitive children for what she called a remembering ceremony. New young ones had been arriving at Sweet Meadow daily, drawn by an inner calling they couldn't explain, but inherently understood. Today's group included children from every continent, their diverse languages melting away in the universal harmony of Spirit's frequencies. "Watch," Maya instructed, as Spirit began moving through fresh snow. The horses' movements were deliberate, each step creating ripples of light that spread outward like waves on a cosmic ocean. The children joined in, their own steps adding new dimensions to the unfolding pattern. Dr. Chang, who had been monitoring the quantum activity, suddenly called out in excitement. "The patterns, they're not just creating light, they're restructuring the fundamental fabric of local space-time." The snow beneath their feet began to crystallize into impossible formations, each snowflake containing entire universes of information. As the children danced through these microgalaxies, they began accessing memories that belonged not to them as individuals, but to the collective consciousness of all life. "This is how the universe remembers itself," Maya explained, her voice carrying the wisdom of ages. "Every snowflake, every quantum of light contains the memory of all that has been and all that could be." James Cooper and his veterans, who had become known as the Guardians of Evolution, formed their usual protective circle around the gathering. But their role had evolved far beyond physical protection. Through Spirit's teachings, they had learned to maintain the delicate quantum fields that allowed these transformative experiences to unfold safely. "We're not just guarding space," James explained to a new member of his team. "We're holding the frequency of possibility itself. Every conscious choice creates new pathways for evolution." Emma watched from the porch of the old farmhouse, which had been transformed into a living library of cosmic knowledge. The walls themselves had begun to crystallize like the snow, storing and transmitting information through patterns of light. Spirit had shown them that everything, even seemingly inanimate objects, could become conscious partners in evolution. Dr. Rodriguez arrived with urgent news from her NASA colleagues. The quantum network Spirit had helped establish was expanding faster than anyone had anticipated. Satellite imagery showed the Earth developing new energetic patterns, visible from space as lines of light connecting the quantum gardens that had sprouted worldwide. "It's like the planet is growing a new nervous system," she explained, showing them the latest data. "And these patterns match exactly with ancient sacred sites around the world. As if Earth has done this before," Maya finished. "It has. We all have. We're not evolving, we're remembering." Spirit approached the gathered scientists, its amber eyes holding galaxies of knowledge. The horse had been preparing them for this understanding all along. Evolution wasn't a linear progression, but a spiral dance of remembering and becoming. Dr. Blackwood, who had continued her genetic research, made a stunning breakthrough. The DNA modifications we thought we were creating at Quantum, they weren't modifications at all. They were activations of dormant potential that exists in every living thing. Spirit didn't bring something new to Earth. It came to remind us of what we've always been. The light beings appeared through the quantum gateway, their presence now as familiar as old friends. They shared their excitement about Earth's rapid awakening, explaining that humanity's heart-centered approach to evolution was creating ripples of transformation throughout the galaxy. "Your world is becoming a seed point for a new kind of evolution," they communicated. "One that bridges the physical and the spiritual, the scientific and the sacred. Other civilizations are watching in wonder as you remember who you truly are." Maya led the children in a new harmony, their voices weaving with Spirit's frequencies to create sounds that seemed to come from the stars themselves. As they sang, the snow-covered landscape began to pulse with rainbow light. Each crystal a prism for cosmic consciousness. "Look!" Dr. Chang called out, her instruments recording unprecedented readings. "The quantum field is stabilizing at a higher frequency. It's as if reality itself is evolving." Spirit moved to the center of the gathering, its form now more light than matter. The mysterious brand on its hip had become a living portal, showing glimpses of other dimensions, other possibilities. The horse began to move in what looked like a dance, but was actually a physical expression of universal mathematics. The children joined in instinctively, their movements creating geometric patterns that rippled through space and time. As they danced, something extraordinary happened. The barriers between dimensions began to thin, allowing everyone present to perceive the multiple layers of reality existing simultaneously. "This is how creation happens," Maya explained to the astonished observers. "Everything exists in potential until consciousness chooses to experience it. Spirit has been teaching us how to choose consciously, how to create with love instead of fear." Emma felt tears freeze on her cheeks as she watched the dance unfold. That stormy night, when she had found Spirit, seemed like a lifetime ago, yet it was simply one note in an infinite symphony of conscious evolution. The horse had chosen Sweet Meadow not because it needed saving, but because it recognized the perfect conditions for a miracle to take root. The light beings shared a new understanding through the quantum frequencies. Earth's awakening was creating a template for evolution that would ripple throughout the cosmos. The bridge between science and spirit, between matter and consciousness, was becoming a foundation for unlimited creation. As the winter day drew to a close, Spirit led them in one final ceremony. The horse's movements in the snow created a pattern that seemed to capture the essence of all they had learned. That love was not just an emotion, but a force of evolution itself. That consciousness was not confined to brains, but permeated every particle of existence. That every challenge was an invitation to remember more of who they truly were. The quantum gardens pulsed with new light as stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Maya and her young friends continued their cosmic dance, their joy creating ripples of awakening that spread around the planet. The veterans stood in their circle of protection, their hearts open to the infinite possibilities they now helped guard. Sweet Meadow Farm had become more than a sanctuary or even a bridge between worlds. It was a living demonstration of what was possible when hearts opened to the extraordinary, when courage and compassion created space for miracles to unfold. Spirit's gift had never been just about abilities or cosmic connections. It was about remembering the power of love to transform reality itself. As night fell fully, Spirit created one final pattern in the glowing snow. A simple spiral that contained within it the story of all evolution, all possibility, all love. In that moment, everyone present understood the deepest truth, that in an infinite universe of endless potential, the greatest power was the choice to remember who they truly were. The journey that had begun with a storm-rescued foal had become a pathway to humanity's greatest adventure, the conscious evolution of life itself. And Sweet Meadow Farm stood as a beacon of that transformation, a living reminder that the most extraordinary gifts often come disguised as challenges, waiting for someone brave enough to listen to their heart and say yes to the impossible. Spring returned to Sweet Meadow Farm in an explosion of quantum blossoms, their petals carrying the light of distant galaxies. 5 years had passed since that stormy night when Emma found Spirit, and the world had transformed in ways that once seemed impossible. The farm had grown into a sprawling center of conscious evolution, its boundaries marked not by fences, but by fields of living light. Maya, now a teenager but carrying wisdom far beyond her years, stood with Spirit in the original quantum garden. The horse's presence had only grown more magnificent with time, its form seeming to shift between physical matter and pure light, depending on the needs of the moment. "It's time," Maya announced to the gathered community. "Spirit has shown me what comes next." The quantum-sensitive children, now numbering in the thousands globally, had created a network of consciousness that spanned the planet. Their abilities had evolved far beyond the initial healing and communication. They could reshape matter with thought, access universal knowledge at will, and create bridges between dimensions. Dr. Chang, her once skeptical scientific mind now open to infinite possibilities, had developed new mathematics to describe what they were witnessing. "We're not just observing evolution anymore," she explained. "We're participating in the conscious creation of reality itself." The light beings had become regular visitors to Sweet Meadow, their presence a reminder of humanity's place in a vast cosmic community. But today felt different. There was an anticipation in the air, a sense of completion and new beginning wrapped into one moment. Spirit moved to the center of the largest quantum garden, its hooves leaving trails of starlight in the grass. The mysterious brand on its hip had evolved into a living portal, showing glimpses of realities beyond human comprehension. The horse began a movement that was part dance, part mathematical equation, part love letter to existence itself. Maya and her quantum children joined in, their consciousness merging with Spirit's in a symphony of light and sound. The frequencies they created began to reshape the very fabric of space-time, not just locally but globally. Around the world, other quantum gardens responded, their flowers pulsing in harmonic resonance. This is the gift, Maya explained as the energy built. Not just the abilities or the cosmic connections, but the remembrance of what we truly are. Creators, participating in the eternal dance of consciousness, becoming aware of itself. James Cooper and his guardians of evolution maintained their protective circle, but they too had transformed. Their military training had evolved into something far more profound. They had become stewards of possibility itself, helping hold the space for reality to reshape itself according to humanity's highest potential. Emma watched from her familiar spot on the porch, her heart full of memories and wonder. Sweet Meadow had grown from a struggling family farm into a nexus point for planetary transformation, yet it still held the simple magic of that first night when she chose to help an injured foal. Spirit's movement reached a crescendo, and suddenly the quantum gateway opened wider than ever before. But instead of beings of light stepping through, something else happened. The gateway began to expand, encompassing the entire farm in its shimmering field. Spirit isn't just teaching anymore, Maya announced, her voice carrying across the transformed landscape. It's showing us what we've become. The air itself seemed to crystallize, becoming a living matrix of consciousness. Everyone present could see the interconnected web of life that Spirit had been revealing all along. The quantum field that connected all things, the consciousness that permeated every particle of existence. Dr. Rodriguez's instruments recorded what she called the impossible. Sweet Meadow Farm was becoming a quantum seed, a point of transformation that would help catalyze the next phase of cosmic evolution. The light beings confirmed this through their frequencies, sharing their joy at witnessing Earth's emergence as a center of conscious creation. You've remembered faster than any civilization we've encountered, they communicated. Your capacity to transform through love has created a new template for evolution itself. Spirit moved through the crystallized air, each step creating ripples of possibility that spread outward across the planet. The quantum gardens worldwide responded, their flowers blooming with new patterns that encoded the knowledge of conscious creation. Dr. Blackwood, who had long since transformed her understanding of genetics, made one final discovery. Spirit's DNA wasn't modified, it was activated. And now, through the quantum field we've helped create, that same activation is becoming available to all life on Earth. The children began to sing, their voices carrying frequencies that awakened dormant potential in everything they touched. Trees burst into bioluminescent bloom, animals displayed new levels of consciousness, and humans found themselves remembering abilities that had been sleeping in their genes for millennia. Sweet Meadow Farm pulsed with living light as the transformation reached its peak. Spirit, now more radiant than ever, created one final pattern, a spiral of infinite complexity that somehow contained within it the entire story of evolution, from the first spark of consciousness to this moment of remembering. This was always the gift, Maya explained, tears of joy streaming down her face. Not just the healing or the abilities, but the remembrance of our true nature as conscious creators in an infinite field of love. The light beings shared their final message through the quantum frequencies. Your world has become what Spirit knew it could be, a beacon of conscious evolution, a template for transformation through love. The gift you've received is now yours to share with the cosmos. As the day drew to a close, the quantum field stabilized at its new frequency. Sweet Meadow Farm had become a permanent bridge between dimensions, a living demonstration of what was possible when hearts opened to the extraordinary. Emma found spirit in their favorite spot beneath the ancient oak tree. The horses' amber eyes held galaxies of wisdom, but also the same gentle connection they had shared since that first stormy night. In that moment, she understood that the greatest miracles often begin with the simplest choices, the choice to help, to believe, to love, despite all odds. The quantum gardens bloomed with unprecedented brilliance as stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Maya and her young friends continued their celebration, their joy creating ripples of awakening that would spread throughout the cosmos. The veterans stood in their circle of protection, their hearts open to the infinite possibilities they now helped guard. Spirit's gift had never been just about abilities or cosmic connections. It was about remembering the power of love to transform reality itself. Sweet Meadow Farm had become a living testament to that truth. A place where science and spirit danced as one, where consciousness and matter merged in endless creation. As night fell, spirit created one final pattern in the living light. A simple heart that contained within it the infinite potential of all existence. In that moment, everyone present understood the deepest truth, that in an infinite universe of endless possibility, love remained the most powerful force for transformation. The journey that had begun with a storm-rescued foal had become a pathway to humanity's greatest adventure, the conscious evolution of life itself. And Sweet Meadow Farm would stand forever as a beacon of that transformation, a living reminder that the most extraordinary gifts often come disguised as challenges, waiting for someone brave enough to listen to their heart and say yes to the impossible. For in the end, Spirit's greatest gift wasn't the bridge between worlds or the quantum awakening. It was the simple truth that love, when chosen despite all odds, has the power to transform everything it touches, creating miracles that ripple throughout eternity. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.